Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, rovers. How are you doing today? Today's video is quite an epic one because we are going to be talking about Fusion Rover. Now, we are getting way into the future of Wuthering Waves, but there is enough information that suggests Fusion Rover will be centered around certain events and certain cultures. So what we're going to do is take a look at all of this information in-game, where it stems from in real life, and use it as proof to build an image of what we can expect for Fusion Rover. On top of this, there is information that suggests Fusion Rover will take place in version 4.0 to version 5.0 of Wuthering Waves. And the reason behind this is the original order of the elements from version 0.5 and CBT1, and this is the same order that the premium 5 stars have released in. Jinchi representing Spectro may mean we go back to Jinjo or have something to do with Black Shores after the Electro Rover. Kura have a lot of silent foreshadowing, hidden details when they release things, and this may be one of them. Alright, that's enough yapping from me, enjoy the video. Alrighty rovers, so right here we are watching Wuthering Waves in 2028. In this video, I kind of did a brief preview on what I believe all the elements will be based on things that are already in the game. So for example, there are items in game that suggest Kura's adaptation of the 4 classical elements of the ancient world, or the oldest understanding of the 4 elements, is being used as a basis for the game and for regions. And so because I did not want to make a 50-minute video going through every region and the possibilities, this Wuthering Waves in 2028 video is just an overview of kind of what I have together. And that's why we have title cards for each element or each attribute, and I don't really explain them in great detail. But today we're going to explain Fusion Rover in great detail, and I'm going to give you all the proof for Fusion Rover. Following Electro, we have Fusion. Now this is the most complex in my opinion. Fusion not only relates to fire, but to something that can be syncretized. Now, I do explain what syncretized is. Basically, it's the coming together of 2 systematic beliefs. This word is mostly used when 2 separate religions or beliefs are fused together to make one. Somewhat like 2 divinities becoming one, but on a much larger scale. And this in Wuthering Waves is not only 2 cultures coming together, but the fusion of TDs as well. So Tacit Discords have 5 different types of cores at the moment, and I think it will be this way for a large portion of the game. Every Tacit Discord has one specific type of Tacit core, and that's dependent on how that Tacit core behaves and what it is made out of. The very human-like Tacit Discords have the Whisperin core. Tacit Discords that represent animals have the Howler core. Electronic man-made objects that become Tacit Discords, like the Tesla car, they have what looks like a circuit board as their Tacit core. So when we head to Fusion, or 4.0 in Wuthering Waves, we could be going to a region that has Tacit Discords of more than 1 core. And then we're seeing like real abominations of Tacit Discords, and would also allow them to be more powerful. Could be a lament that is growing across a country into another country or city, so we'd see Tacit Discords that merge and form bigger Tacit Discords with at least 2 possible Tacit cores. And the key word for understanding what nations or cultures may play into the story around Fusion is the Great Rift Valley. This has been mentioned in Wuthering Waves as a specific area, and there is a real life version of this stretching from Jordan in the Middle East to Southeastern Africa. So in real life, a rift valley is formed when 2 tectonic plates move apart. The original symbol for fusion seems to prove this is the case. We had a rotationally symmetric symbol, and a rift valley is formed from 2 tectonic plates, which in this case is 2 objects of the same kind. And with this, there may also be the revived volcanic activity and such. Okay, so we have volcanoes, Great Rift Valley, and tacitites, because tacitite is the material used to create tacit cores. Now in Septimont alone, we already have the suggestion that there is a volcano. Whether it's dormant, whether it's revived, whether it's always been active, we don't know. We know that Septimont has a supply of tacitite, because that's where Raguna gets their tacitite from. We know that the volcano exists because of Vulcan mining, the gladiator team known as Vulcan mining, and Vulcan meaning volcanoes. So this is the evidence used to say that tacitite is a naturally occurring substance or mineral or material that can be found around volcanoes or the Great Rift Valley. Kura may then explore this in saying that if there is a rich concentration of tacitite, then there is the possibility of the mutation of tacit discords, giving them more than one tacit core. Now I do want to mention that one country does not equal one specific element because of how massive Hualong seems to be with a capital and 6 cities. It is possible that there are more Trinodians than attributes, and cities of Hualong that border other countries may create these fused tacit discords. And to really bring this all together with geoformations in-game, we have tacitite and the tranquilitite tacit cores. Tacitite seems to be a material that is composed of remnant energy or reverberations, and tranquilite tacit cores are those, that's the word, tranquilite. When I was saying naturally occurring materials, I couldn't remember the word tranquilite, that's the word I was looking for. So the ice prism is like a geoconstruct, a naturally occurring element that becomes a tacit discord that are relating to inorganic substances. So the extent of tacitite as a material may be explored during the story of fusion. When we look at associations with fire, and now with septimonts and Vulcan mining, and the rich tacitite supply that septimont has, we probably will be learning a bit more about the material. The broadest sense is war, but this war may be destructive or to protect peace, or as a symbol that peace is only temporary and war is a destined result. Okay, that was all for that part of Fusion Rover. So let me go over how all of this information points to a specific culture, an area of the world that we will be exploring or exposed to in Wuthering Waves version 4.0. So the Great Rift Valley referenced in Wuthering Waves may be tied to the Great Rift Valley that actually exists on Earth. And this is a rift valley that runs from the Middle East to Southeastern Africa. So here on Google Earth, the Rift Valley is created from 2 plates. And here going through Ethiopia, you can actually see the texture on Google Earth. This is where the Rift Valley runs all the way up through here in through Jordan. Now, if we have a look at the real life history of this area, so here we have Jordan, and over here this is the Indian border, so you have Pakistan and Afghanistan. Here you would have Egypt, which is still Egypt today, and you have Turkey over here. The Persian Empire was in control of this land around the same time that Homer and Hesiod were writing what we now know it today as Greco-Roman mythology, or at least the Greco side of Greco-Roman mythology. And if you followed the channel for a while now, you'll know that Greco-Roman mythology has a major influence on the story of Wuthering Waves. Not just Wuthering Waves or Kuro's story writing, it's featured in all kinds of story writing. Hoyoverse, Marvel, DC Comics, all of it. The Persian Empire's main religious focus was Zoroastrianism. And in this belief, fire is considered a sacred element. So that means that fire is the holiest of all elements, representing purity and wholeness. And we just need to prove that this information is in Wuthering Waves, or at least that this information is being used in Wuthering Waves. Alrighty rovers, so the first proof is going to be Alexander the Great. Now whether you've heard of him or not, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how what is known about him may be influencing Wuthering Waves' story and world building. Alexander the Great is the former king of Macedonia who conquered a large amount of land during his lifetime. Macedonia is here in northern Greece. And this image here is the area that Alexander the Great has conquered. So this entire piece here going a little bit into Egypt and Persia, the same Persia that was ruled by the ancient Persian Empire. So there's already a connection between Alexander the Great and Persia. Now the symbol often associated with Alexander the Great is the Macedonian flag with a Virginia sun, which has 16 points, or 16 rays because it's a sun. The same symbol found with Augusta and in Septimont. And prior to that, it is found with the older elements, or at least with Rover, Spectro, and a little bit of Glacier even. Now, I will admit this is not strong evidence, but in connection with this next point, it's quite compelling evidence. This leads us to our second proof, which is Scar and Bucephalus, the horse of Alexander the Great. Bucephalus was the famous and well-loved horse of Alexander the Great. The story behind Bucephalus is that he was an untamable horse that piqued the interest of Alexander the Great as a kid, and he promised to pay for this horse should he fail to tame it. And because this horse is deemed untamable and so wild, the chances are Alexander would not be able to tame it, especially at the age of 12 years old. But to everyone's surprise, he was able to tame the horse and therefore named it Bucephalus. We have a character in Wuthering Waves who has this untamed nature, being Scar. And if you think about it, the only real person who can really talk to Scar or get through to Scar would be Rover, because Scar wants Rover. Now, if we look at the actual text about what is written and documented in history, this is what is known about the horse Bucephalus. Bucephalus was strong and beautiful in body and of a generous spirit. Bucephalus also had a mark on his side which was quite distinguishable, and it was of the head of an ox, or in other words, an ox head. The reason Bucephalus was given this name and symbol is because it was a black horse with a white mark on his forehead, which is very similar to what oxen usually have. Now, Scar has similarities to this, being untamable and wild by nature, and the name Scar could be because of the white mark, which is often known as the scar on Bucephalus. That is just one layer of the creation of Scar. The other layer, and it's quite poetic, is again coming from Oxhead. Oxhead being the symbol or brand and meaning behind Bucephalus' name. Oxhead is also one of the guardians of the Chinese underworld called Diyu. In the same way that Folova has a Russian name, then has an alter ego that is of Greek underworld mythology, Scar could have a name referencing Bucephalus, and his alter ego being that of Oxhead from the Chinese underworld. Just on the side, the underworld in Wuthering Waves is referred to as the Netherworld. And this is why I think we'll see the end of Scar in version 4.0 to version 5.0, because Bucephalus died of old age and heat at around 30 years old. So poetically speaking, if this is a layer behind the inspiration for Scar, then I wouldn't be surprised to see Scar die by fire between version 4.0 and version 5.0, or whenever we explore Fusion Rover. Alright, and the final proof, I think you guys are going to love this one, comes from QIUYUAN. Now this is still a work in progress, so I don't have all the information to create a full video on QIUYUAN yet, but this is what I have so far. The Yuan in QIUYUAN's name means afar, so this character here means afar. And this makes sense because QIUYUAN is described as a wayfarer. One of the layers of the creation of QIUYUAN, I believe, comes from Cho Chuji. This is quite a famous character in Chinese history. Now there's quite a lot to read about him, but we're not going to go through all of that. I'm just going to highlight the key points of information. And that is that he was one of the 7 true Taoists of the North, and he traveled to Persia at the request of Genghis Khan. Now here it mentions the Hindu Kush, and that is around Pakistan's area. If you have a look here on the map. So this is where Cho Chuji would travel to for Genghis Khan. And if you put the time frames together, that means that Cho Chuji went to an area that was once occupied by Persia, again showing a Persian connection. QIUYUAN and Cho Chuji both have this weapon as well. Another character that I think plays as inspiration for the creation of QIUYUAN is going to be Meng Hao, the main protagonist of I Shall Seal the Heavens. Now this is quite a popular wuxia novel, and I can't find the actual Chinese name for it. I Shall Seal the Heavens is the English translation of the name. This character has many parallels to what is known about Cho Chuji. He's also a Taoist, just like Cho Chuji, and he was in search of immortality the same way that Cho Chuji would do for Genghis Khan. And the reason I think that this character plays big inspiration for our QIUYUAN in Wuthering Waves is because of his depiction and his equipment. Meng Hao in I Shall Seal the Heavens He's a wayfarer or a wanderer, and he's a swordsman. And yeah, if you have a look here, he has a lot of different swords. And the power associated with him is lightning, so electro. If you have a look at the gallery, and this includes the official illustrations, manhwa, and fan art as well, you'll see there are a lot of similarities. Now, if this is the case, that means that when QIUYUAN resonates, he will either keep his normal appearance but have black veins running throughout his entire body, or he will actually have a change of clothing like he does in the gallery, and it will change to a different color palette. Yeah, this is still work in progress for developing a theory around QIUYUAN, but the point is that Shuji is a famous Chinese character that traveled all the way to Persia for Genghis Khan. That is where the Persian connection again comes through for Wuthering Waves. Now, do I think that Wuthering Waves or version 4.0 to 5.0 is going to purely be Persian influence? No. I think we will also see Egyptian influence because of how much of Egypt was actually influenced by Persia. And finally, just to end off, we have what I thought would be the story around version 4.0 to 5.0, but now I think it's actually part of Septimont. Here in the Solaris transcript that is used in Wuthering Waves, I have written Dawn of Ragnarok. Now the chances are you've probably heard of Ragnarok before, whether it be from Thor or from Marvel or from a TV series. And basically what Ragnarok is an event that describes the end times of the living world or the living realm. And this is from Norse mythology. Now instead of me explaining all of this in this video, I have double uploaded with the Septimont Ragnarok, and this will go through the events of Ragnarok and how they perfectly fit what is already been shown of Septimont. So yeah, basically it's just proving that I think version 4.0 to 5.0 will be centered around Persian and Egyptian culture. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you in the next video.